Welcome to the November 14th edition of Wildcat News. Tonight we'll be kicking off the holiday season and give an update on the state of the Great Salt Lake.
We'll discuss the chilling events that transpired in Colorado Springs and the state of local politics. All of this and more when we come back. Home to the largest saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere, but the storied body is in crisis. The number of last year, the Great Salt Lake was at its lowest point in recorded history. A strong winter helped raise its water levels a bit, but is this a temporary fix or a hope for the future? Utah authorities rely on the lake for long-lasting economic and environmental growth. Organizations like Friends of the Great Salt Lake and Health Utah, for example, focus on the lake with efforts to increase public education around water conservation. The lake is vital to Utah and to the economy with the tourism industry it brings in and the flora and fauna that reside near or in it, like the brine shrimp and brine flies, which help sustain the various bird species that migrate through the region. Experts recommend becoming water-wise and using water sustainably. Water conservation starts at the individual level and affects almost everything in the state. Reporter Hannah Moore is researching the lake for an investigative piece that will air in the upcoming months.
A poll by the New York Times shows Trump ahead of Biden in several battleground states. The 2023 election results gave Democrats a number of reasons to celebrate. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, states across the country have been introducing constitutional amendments that ban abortion or limits them to 6 weeks. Ohio voted for Trump over Biden in 2020 with an 8% margin, makes them a conservative state, and it was the first state to introduce a total ban on abortion. The measure was defeated in a surprise victory for abortion rights supporters. Other key victories for the Democrats include a Democratic governor who won re-election in Deep Red, Kentucky, and in Pennsylvania, Democrats won an open Senate seat in the Supreme Court and controlled the state legislature in Virginia. More on this in next week's Wildcat News.
In some chilling news, the operators of a Colorado Spring funeral home are facing approximately 190 counts of corpse abuse after police found at least 190 corpses that have been stored away and found in various states of decay in the funeral home's facility in Penrose, Colorado. Authorities arrested John and Carrie Hilford, the husband-wife operators of Return to Nature Funeral Home, and jailed them on $2 million bond. The arrest warrant included 190 counts of corpse abuse, 5 counts of theft, 4 counts of money laundering, and 50 counts of forgery. The Halfords were arrested in Wagner, Oklahoma, and are set for an initial court appearance for a federal fleeing charge on November 9th in Muskogee, Oklahoma. The corpses were discovered by authorities on October 4th after reports of an abhorrent smell led officers to discover the stash of decaying bodies, with some of the corpses having a death date that dates as far back as 2019. Investigators have currently identified 110 of 190 bodies found and have returned 25 corpses in an ongoing effort to return the mistreated remains to their families. The district attorney's office is in contact with 137 families who suspect that the cremated remains given to them by Return to Nature funeral homes were not the actual remains of their loved one. The FBI District Attorney Michael Allen are asking any families who have done business with the fraudulent funeral home since 2019 to step forward as they continue the task of identifying the corpses found and testing the cremated remains given to clients by the Halfords.
In more positive news, Australia offered a lifeline to the island nation Tuvalu amid rising sea levels and an increase of tropical storms due to climate change. With a population of 11,000, the agreement allows up to 280 Tuvaluvians to come to Australia each year. The European Union's Green Deal plan has lost much of its support. The plan was set of climate goals for the EU to meet by the year 2030 to help combat climate change. After the most recent debates, though, and voting, many parliaments believe the goals are just unrealistic. The internet collapsed in Yemen. The Houthi-controlled Senate news agency claimed it was due to maintenance work. However, it was not the case. The outage came after a series of Houthi drone and missile attacks on the Gaza Strip. In other news, Swiftie in Buenos Aires, Argentina found themselves surrounded by political posters urging Swifties to vote one way or another in the upcoming elections. However, Taylor Swift was not the creator of these posters, but was depicted favoring one candidate over the other.
That was our world news recap. Here's the important events transpiring in the U.S. International news affects us all when we involve humanitarian rights. Following the genocide of the Palestinian people, nations all over the world are boycotting companies aiding Israel.
Everyone knows what's happening in Palestine. Well, actually not everyone, but the general public tends to know.
Nations have been striking and protesting for Palestinian lives. People are now bringing back BDS boycott, divestments, and sanctions. But what are the main companies peoples are boycotting?
McDonald's has been a huge problem where they have actually been sending free meals to Israel, to the IDF soldiers. And I don't go to Starbucks. I've never gone to Starbucks, but I don't go to Starbucks.
Other companies people are boycotting are also Coca-Cola and Pepsi products. However, this movement brings us bigger questions like why boycott, and does boycotting even work?
Especially with the Western world in forms of protest, the one that you actually do see the physical results of is through boycott by looking at their stock market afterwards. And I feel like the Western world really does know about boycotting anyways, because one of the first books that elementary school does read to you is Click Clack Moo. So I do think people know about it, and I think that people should do it.
The truth is, boycotting works. People have walked out of stores, and stores have even been shut down. If you want to make a presence and stand for what you believe in, boycotting is a great first step.
Continue to follow along with us on the Gaza story as we further our observations. Now, here's a little on some new research on the domestic house cat that reveals there may be some unexpected reasons for why cats purr. We all know that cats will purr for us when they are happy or when they want to get our attention. But some other new research suggests that some purrs may originate from an involuntary function of the feline glottal system as air travels through, similar to how we snore when air travels through our throat, and nasal system when we sleep. Previously, feline researchers thought purring was the result of a voluntary muscle contraction made by the cat. However, the authors' findings in their study suggest that the mere passage of the air through a cat's lungs can make the sound of a purr. The researchers experimented on this by removing the larynx of euthanized house cats to test their hypothesis. By housing the larynx in the isolated container and supplying them with warm, moist air, the researchers were able to emulate the sound of a cat's purring without any neural stimulation.
Researching cats is fun and all, but have you heard about what researchers are finding in the water of the hot springs in Ogden? They say three is a crowd. Well, either lithium, uranium, and arsenic have been found hanging out in the Ogden hot springs. The hot springs near the mouth of the Ogden Canyon were tested last year by Weber State students. They found free ions of the elements. One student explained what that means.
So what we have is that the water has a lot of free ions of uranium. Free ions just means that they're floating around in the water itself and haven't attached to anything else.
While the findings seem alarming, the student professor and department chair of Earth and Environmental Sciences, Marek Matijasic, says there isn't a real health concern. The levels of lithium, uranium, and arsenic are not uncommon for hot springs. In fact, he said Crystal Hot Springs has higher levels of lithium. Matijasic said bathing is okay, just don't drink the water.
From down low to up high with our scientific interests, here's Leo Beck with news on the acclaimed Artemis mission.
In the year 2025, NASA is shooting towards the moon once again in a three-step plan. This three-step plan is called the Artemis missions. Tonight, I'm underneath the stars to learn a little bit more about what it's all about. I am joined with Professor Paul Ricketts. He is an astronomy and physics professor at the University of Utah. He gave us a quick rundown on what the Artemis mission is.
So Artemis is NASA's attempt at returning to the moon. So they're redeveloping very large launch rocket called the SLS. And so they actually were successfully able to launch the rocket system into a brief orbit around the moon, and then it returned back to Earth. Um, and so that was a really successful thing. So they're trying to rebuild this rocket similar to how they had um, the Apollo rockets and stuff back in the 1960s and 70s. So they're trying to recreate that. The problem with having to do it now is we have different technologies. So all of the technologies from before aren't really applicable to what we have now. So we have to rebuild everything. And that's what's taking the longest amount of time and to make sure everything's working. So the main goal is to get back to the moon, so where we can potentially set up a moon base. And that new moon base that they want to set up is kind of a launching pad to a Mars base in the future.
When the Artemis missions were introduced, people were skeptical about why we had to go back. People like Elon Musk want to skip the moon and go straight to Mars. So how is the mission different from Apollo? John Armstrong, Weber State University's astronomy professor and Ott Planetarium director, explains.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, we've been there, done that to the moon," and I would say that no, there was a time back in the '60s in the '60s and '70s, where we threw a couple people up there and took some science from that where we could, but that's not what it was for, right? I mean, that entire Apollo mission was just proving to the Soviets that we could do it, and nobody thought real hard in advance about what we were trying to do.
This mission is going to send astronauts to the moon with the new purpose of discovery and exploration. However, Artemis's main goal is to make a permanent presence on the moon. How is that even possible?
So, at least on the moon, they're looking for places that actually contain water. So there are some craters and things around the moon that could potentially actually have water ice inside them. There potentially could be underground deposits of some water or something like that that they can tap into for that. Oxygen that you breathe can be recycled and turned back into oxygen. Uh, so that's one way they can do it. Other ways are they can, if there is water on the moon, they can use that water to create oxygen from that. So there's several ways. One of the things that was sent recently to Mars, at least, was a device that converts. Um, I think it converts CO2 into oxygen uh, from Mars atmosphere, and so that's something that they could potentially use on the moon. That was built here. I think it was built here in Utah, maybe up in Logan at USU, if I remember right. I could be wrong about that though. Um, but those kind of technologies and stuff are being developed. So the cool thing about that kind of stuff is you could potentially even use it here on Earth. So other methods of surviving that long are going to be like how to grow food on the moon. Can you use lunar soils to actually grow um, actual food and stuff on the moon? What kind of things you need to have to add into that you would have to bring to Earth, that kind of stuff. Um, so there's a lot of things that they have to develop, and partially there's a lot of people doing that here on Earth, but you can only really test it when you're on the moon.
Our return to the moon will be different than the last time. Artemis 1 has already taken flight and plans to continue on the horizon. We wait to shoot to the moon and beyond. I'm Leo Beck from Weber State University, Ogden.
Thanks, Leo. It's exciting to hear what we NASA has in store for up out of the atmosphere. However, in Utah, we experience a phenomenon in the air each winter. Let's hear more from Lexi Andrew on the inversion.
Temperatures are cooling and fall is turning to winter, and with this, Utah's infamous inversion is coming in. The inversion has a negative connotation, but it is a natural process.
An inversion is called an inversion because it's a reversal of that situation. So when we get really cold, dense air that drains into the valley, or have just super cold temperatures that really chill the ground, which cools faster than the air, it essentially displaces that little bit of warmer air, relatively warmer air lower down, and pushes it up. And so you have this relatively colder layer down below and a slightly warmer layer up above.
Utahns believe the inversion is bad because the air quality worsens and you can see the pollution. But we're putting out the same amount of pollution, the pollution just has nowhere to go. The air quality is also monitored. If there is an orange or red day, it is recommended for sensitive groups to stay indoors.
It's kind of like you've got a lid on the top of the atmosphere. Not really on the top, but on the top of the cold air down below. The warm air is like a lid on top of the cold air. And that lid means that all of the pollution that we are normally putting into the air anyway, normally all that pollution gets carried away by the wind. It gets mixed around by the bubbling of air currents. But when there's an inversion, that bubbling is really tamped down. We've got a lid on top of it. And so all the pollution that we normally put out anyway, it's not that we're creating any more pollution than normal, it's just that pollution isn't going anywhere.
Utahns can do their part to lower emissions and help reduce that pollution layer by using public transit, carpooling, or walking or riding bikes. We can all do our part to reduce our emissions so that when the inversion does roll in, our air quality isn't as bad. I'm Lexi Andrew from Weber State University, Ogden.
Good advice there, Lexi. The inversion means the holidays are right around the corner, and with them come all the merry cheer, thanks, and giving these last months of the year hold. However, your brain doesn't take a vacation like school systems do during these holidays. The seasonal stress and depression are about to get a set in for the long haul. Students often feel an influx in anxiety during this time of year because of traveling, decorating, and gift giving. Some may experience feelings of loneliness because of the lack of the latter. The holidays are just merriment and fun, but can be a real struggle for those diagnosed with depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and more. Tune in next time for student testimonials, psychological explanations, and counselor tips on how to maintain a healthy mind over the holidays.
The winter brings around more sniffles and sicknesses too. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or so they say. Does that apply to sicknesses as well? In other news, let's hear from Skye Mundell on the event that transpired at the WSU Resiliency Fair.
Hi, I'm here at the Weber State University Resiliency Fair, and we're going to be talking to a student leader about what it means to be resilient, how it is important to recognize resiliency and promote it among our students and our veterans.
Yeah, so today is part of a conjoined effort between other organizations on campus to bring kind of the attention and awareness to resiliency. Military veterans and resiliency go hand in hand. Learning how to be strong, persevere through hard times. It's something that a lot of college students can probably relate to, especially when things are difficult. And so we felt that there's principles of resiliency that we could teach and help other students know about how they can incorporate principles of toughness and grit and determination through their daily lives.
So we're at the Resiliency Fair today. So what does resiliency mean to you?
Resiliency basically just, to me, means like overcoming some specific challenges that kind of stretches you.
Right.
And that means to me like learning how to adapt to different environments and being able to use whatever resources that you have and being able to use that to your advantage.
Specifically, this table here is working on bringing awareness to a problem, a crisis that's happening in the veteran community where 22 veterans a day are committing suicide. And so there's something called the 22 push-up challenge where we to bring awareness to this problem, we encourage people to do push-ups and be involved so they can make sure that they're reaching out to their veteran friends and family and making sure to help them find the resources and help that they need. I think that college students have this unique challenge where your schedule is in huge demand, you're constantly under the demand of turning in assignments, you're working through the stresses that come with that. It can be really hard and wear on you very quickly and very easily. And if you aren't taking an active or proactive approach in how to care for yourself, whether that's through self-care, whether that's through wellness, whether that's through reaching out to community resources here on campus, it can catch up to you, and we're making sure that college students feel empowered and enabled to take on the challenges that they face every day on campus.
I decided to do my part and participate in the 22 push-up challenge, and I am so glad that I did. If you have a veteran in your life, make sure that you thank them for their service and let them know that you are there for them. This is Skye Mundell with Wildcat News.
Great job, Sky, but I hope those push-ups weren't too hard. Although it looks like it may take some time, Weber State University is on its way to becoming a Hispanic Serving Institute. Stated in the university's 5-year plan for growth, known as Amplified, the institution is hoping to grow their Hispanic and Latino student body count to 15% by the year 2025. Defined by federal law, a Hispanic Serving Institute must have an enrollment of undergraduate full-time students that is at least 25% Hispanic students in order to be called a Hispanic Serving Institute. According to Weber State University, there are currently 13% of students attending this school who have identified as Hispanic and Latino.
Weber State University students in the local community had an opportunity to learn basic rappel skills at the Outdoor Adventure and Welcome Center on November 11th. Outdoor adventure trip leaders were available to teach people how to rappel inside while in a safe environment instead of teaching them outside, where learning to rappel is more dangerous for beginners. The Outdoor Adventure and Welcome Center is planning on continuing rappel training this Saturday by training more advanced climbers.
Weber State University's Outdoor Adventure and Welcome Center is WSU students' one-stop shop for all things outdoor recreation. The facility's rock wall is a beloved pastime for some students. The Outdoor Adventure Center is a great place to learn how to boulder and find like-minded climbers in the WSU community.
Cool. So the reason I'm interested in outdoor recreation is because my major in criminal justice and my minor in botany is towards that. I wanted to be a park ranger since I was a kid, and I've worked for the National Forest Service for 2 summers already as a forest tech. So I'm just falling in love with nature. I love being outside, and I love helping just nature thrive. The best part about bouldering here is the community, that you can just meet friends here. You can totally talk to people. They'll be able to help you out, and a bunch of bouldering people here will just give you advice. WSU's rock wall climbing facilities are open from about 7 to 5. Then we close the bouldering for belaying. And yeah, any student goes here for free, and they can bring a guest.
Students are encouraged to give climbing at WSU a try. WSU will be holding a backlight bouldering competition on December 1st. Seasoned climbers and newcomers alike are encouraged to join. More information can be found on WSU's outdoor program website.
Weber State offers many recreational and artistic opportunities catered to interests and careers, including the radio station. KWCR radio station held their 2nd annual live event on Wednesday known as Battle of the Bands. The radio station paid 3 different bands to play and compete against each other, and then allowed their audience to vote on who would get first place.
We're here to play it at Battle of the Bands.
Let's go Wildcats! Whoa!
That's Cashel Barnett, as seen on TV. He's my drummer.
After hearing the bands play, the audience was able to participate in creating old vinyl records, making their own buttons, and they were able to collect free samples.
On top of the non-graded activities WSU hosts, the academic world and courses offered are branching out as well. While Weber State bleeds purple, a new course is painting the campus bright pink. Barbie Studies is coming this spring.
I'm centering it around Barbie, obviously, but there's lots of themes and ideas that scholars have critiqued and popular culture have critiqued about Barbie and also promoted. And so I'll be doing different units on like girlhood and motherhood, but then there's also ideas about race and racism and whiteness. There's also just stuff about eating disorders and women's body image and whether or not the doll is appropriate for like little girls. So there's lots of research out there about these topics, and I'll just kind of sort them into units and focus on one at a time.
Peterson said that while the class will be fun, it's not just fluff. A library of academic research on the doll and its connection to women may prove it's more than just a toy. Thanks for joining us tonight on Wildcat News. I'm Parker Mani.
And I'm Kennedy Camarina. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.